p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GBNews.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton tonight. With Brexit and our borders in greater jeopardy than ever, two red wall heroes, Nigel Farage and Westminster's toughest MP, Lee Anderson, join me for a Britain in Crisis special. At 9:35, I'll ask Nige whether disillusioned red wall Tories should defect to reform and spark a political revolution. Then I'll explore whether the government's axing of plans to turn back migrant boats means we've given up on the Channel crisis. A new edition of The Real World with Lee Anderson coming at 9:45. As Scots rise up against scheming Nicola Sturgeon, and one of her top civil servants says this:
I'm actually there to talk about is breaking up the kingdom.
Is the SNP coming apart at the seams? That's my digest next, after which I'll get the thoughts of my superstar panel, Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. As the late Queen Elizabeth the Great's lady-in-waiting resigns after decades of service for allegedly asking a black woman what part of Africa she's from, will this unfortunate faux pas now be used by the Sussex squad and other royal family haters and wreckers to launch incorrect racism allegations? That's our big debate at 10 p.m. I've got lots of revelations on this, actually. Plus, you'll never guess who our special correspondent for the Wales' tour of America is. Meghan's estranged sister, Samantha Markle. And she's going to reveal who her country is really backing in the stateside battle of the princes that's even managed to split the Kennedy dynasty. Samantha Markle live with me at 10:40. Has the Qatar World Cup exposed the selective outrage of the hypocrites at the BBC? Football legend and star pundit Mark Lawrenson hits out at the corporation that stabbed him in the back. He's live at 10:20. Plus, should policing guidelines be changed to prevent trans officers from strip-searching women? That's what Surrey's Police and Crime Commissioner Lisa Townsend is calling for. She goes head-to-head with trans writer and broadcaster Frida Wallace in the clash at 9:20. I'll get your verdict too. We'll have tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the presses and a brand new Greatest Britain Union Jack Aston coming too. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. So a very busy show ahead, including a very spicy digest in just a moment. But you know we do the news first, so let's get the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Dan. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The Prince of Wales says there's no place for racism in society. The statement coming after a royal aide was forced to resign over comments made at a reception. Ngozi Fulani, who's the founder of a domestic abuse charity, says she was repeatedly asked by Prince William's godmother where she really came from. Lady Susan Hussey then challenged her after she told her she was born in the UK and is British. Kensington Palace says the comments were unacceptable and it was right for her to step aside with immediate effect. More than 10,000 ambulance workers have voted to strike across 9 trusts in England and Wales next month. Unite Union is the latest to announce staff walkouts. They're joining thousands of 999 call handlers, ambulance technicians and paramedics who are also set to walk off the job. Other strikes will hit National Rail as well as other train operators, and more than 100 Eurostar staff will stop work. The announcements follow today's actions by university and college union members and postal workers. The government has asked police for the use of 400 cells to house prisoners because of overcrowding. Prisons Minister Damian Hinds told MPs there's been an unprecedented increase in the number of offenders over the last few months. He says it's partly due to the Criminal Bar Association strike over the summer, which saw more people on remand. A major trial of an experimental Alzheimer's drug has shown for the first time that early stages of the disease can be slowed. Scientists found after 18 months, lecanemab stalled progression by 27% compared with patients taking a placebo. However, experts warn as the medicine works during the initial stages of the disease, most won't benefit unless there's a revolution in spotting it. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has accused the Prime Minister of being weak during a heated PMQs this afternoon. Rishi Sunak came under fire from the opposition over private school funding, failure to maintain house building targets and the latest series of industrial action. And Fleetwood Mac singer-songwriter Christine McVie has died at the age of 79. Her family said she passed away peacefully this morning following a short illness. The band has paid tribute to her on Twitter, calling McVie truly one of a kind. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Dan Wootton tonight.
The BBC, Sly News, STV and Channel 4 might fail to do their duty and report it because they're in the tank for scheming Sturgeon and always have been, to be honest. But the SNP is coming apart at the seams. Last week, the Supreme Court flatly rejected Queen Nicola's illegal and spurious bid to host Indy Ref 2, which no one but her rabid base actually wants. And today, shocking video leaked to the Daily Record shows one of her top civil servants joking with colleagues that his job is about, quote, breaking up the UK. The truly appalling comment from Ken Thompson, the Director General of Strategy and External Affairs, shows exactly what the Nationalist focuses on, even during a spiralling cost of living crisis.
I'll tell you a secret about why I've got strategy in my job description. It's partly that it's a word that gets me through some doors in Whitehall, and then they discover that what I'm actually there to talk about is breaking up the kingdom. So it's a shorthand for constitutional change.
Oh, how those attendees laughed. But there's nothing funny for Scots suffering from a failing NHS, record ambulance waiting times and a spiralling drug death crisis as £1.5 million is spent on the salaries of civil servants tasked to work on the independence brief. And now, Sturgeon is finally being stood up to by women who know her insane gender reform recognition bill, which appeals to the woke minority she so covets, puts them at risk. So this new law, which is expected to pass this year, gives children as young as 16 the legal right to change gender without a gender dysphoria diagnosis, while cutting the time someone has to live in their new gender to just 3 months. So look at what happened last night when the feminist protester Alexander Darroch finally gave the First Minister some much-needed home truths about just how disastrous her law will be for biological women.
Women campaigning for women's rights is not against trans people. Shame on you, you're letting down vulnerable women in Scotland, not allowed to have their own spaces, away from any male. There are just no misogynistic behaviour does not change when a cross-dresser or someone who's actually went through gender reassignment. I've received rape threats, death threats from male to self-ID as women. Shame on you. You fermented this culture in Scotland that basically tells women are bigoted for standing up for women's rights. I see you, and thousands of women around Scotland see you as well. And those of you who are sitting here complicit, keeping your mouths shut while women have actually been raped by males who have self-ID'd as women, and that's got nothing to do with trans rights, and I support trans rights.
What an extraordinary video. I mean, Sturgeon looked furious. She doesn't like hearing the truth, does she? J.K. Rowling, the most famous author in the world, who is boldly challenging Sturgeon over this matter, labelling her a destroyer of women's rights, has sent a crate of champagne to Ms Derrick, apparently, who works for a women's rights charity, so she's a good person. The Harry Potter author also tweeted, in spite of all careful precautions, the First Minister has been accidentally exposed to some freedom of speech. Heads will surely roll. And by the way, for those who think there is no risk from Sturgeon's gender ID legislation, then take a look at this report from the BBC's website yesterday. The headline reads, "Trans woman jailed for sex with 14-year-old girl." The article then goes on. The defendant, named by police as David Orton, also known as Danielle Rose Gemini, was found guilty of penetrative sexual activity with a child following a trial. So Scheming Sturgeon is playing with fire here, and I think she's going to get burned. But to respond now, my superstar panel. Former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Dawn Neeson, can Nicola Sturgeon really say she's on the side of women anymore?
No, she can't. I think she's at risk of alienating 50% of her voters, to be honest with you. I think this Bill of Rights is incredibly dangerous to women. I'm not saying trans women are all dangerous to women, but we know, as that case you've just mentioned, abuses happen, and if one woman or girl is sexually assaulted because of this, then Nicola Sturgeon has quite potentially blood on her hands. I mean, you know, there are 12 trans prisoners in Scottish prisons at the moment who have been convicted of rape or sexual assault of women. They have been placed in female prisons because they identify as women. They are obviously still completely physically men. I think it's an incredibly dangerous thing to, and you know, J.K. Rowling has never once said anything transphobic.
No.
All she has ever said is talked about the rights of women. And, you know, the first women's rights meeting was held back in the 1860s, I think it was, in America. And I really think, Dan, that the clock is being turned back to what those women were fighting for. We are losing our rights on a daily basis. I think it's incredibly dangerous. Women and girls have every right to have a safe space, and I think that what Nicola Sturgeon is trying to do is very, very dangerous.
Ashley James, you disagree?
I think the debate is very nuanced, but where I find it really difficult is that I don't think trans rights and women's rights are separate. I think we're fighting the same thing, which is violence against men. I think, yes, of course, they're...
Violence against women by men.
By men, but yes. I have trans friends, and I never, ever feel that they are anything other than women. I feel safe in their company, both in loos and changing spaces. My fear is I don't like sharing spaces, especially, say, in nightclubs, with men, not trans women, but men, and that is my fear when you're kind of eradicating the safe spaces, especially because the law...
But that's what she's doing.
The law is kind of, like, pitted against us. So there's a case in Italy, for example, where a woman didn't lock the door, and that was described as the judge as an open invitation, so a man got off the case of rape. I think it's really dangerous to lob the trans community in with, like, predators, because, you know, they're... are lots of male predators. But we are even looking at that article, it's like, OK, but there are lots of male paedophiles, and actually, you know, I'm afraid of walking home at night because of men. Actually, but we're not saying let's lock all men up after 9.
Well, there has been a lot of demonisation of men, by the way, over the past couple of years. But
because
the fact is, men cannot enter a female-only space?
So what Nicola Sturgeon is doing is she's just proposing to reform the Gender Recognition Act, and 30 other countries have already done this. So at the moment, it's a very traumatic and
Everyone else is doing
inhumane...
it, so why can't we?
No, my point is...
That's not right, is it?
It's a very inhumane and traumatic process for trans people to have to wait for 2 years. And then on top of that, because of NHS waiting times...
Would you be happy
pressures,
if your 16-year-old child... I mean, I know you're maybe much younger than that at the moment, but once they're 16, comes home to you and says, oh, I've been living in the other sex for 3 months, I'm transitioning.
Well,
Would you be
what
happy
she's
with that?
proposing...
Because this has been taken out of the hands of parents.
What she's proposing is you have 3 months, and then you have 3 months to change your mind, so it'd actually be 6 months.
Yeah, but you don't even have to get a gender dysphoria. So you're OK with that? You'd be comfortable with that?
I would like, let's say, using your example, if either of my children, so I've got a son, I'm having a daughter, if either of them...
I didn't know it was a daughter.
Very excited. But if either of them ever came to me to say, I feel like I was born in the wrong body, I would want to think that we lived in a society that supported them. And
of course, but
by the way, I totally understand this is a really nuanced debate.
I wouldn't want society changing for them.
To make sure, we've got to make sure that this isn't just a phase, they're not going through puberty, they're not struggling with their sexuality, because, you know, I've spoken to lots of women on this show who went through the transitioning process and have had their life destroyed, like Cara Bell, who, of course, took the action against the Tavistock Clinic. She had the double mastectomy, she had the puberty blockers, all before she was 20 years old, and all actually what was going on was a struggle with sexuality. So, look, I think...
But then you have more people in the trans community who are honestly, like, suicidal because of how they are stigmatised in society, and also the trauma of them having to wait for so long. So, look, like I said, I get it. It's a very nuanced debate. I feel quite strongly about protecting female-only spaces. I just don't think that we need to separate trans rights and women's rights.
Adam Brooks, I just want to move on a little bit to talk about the overall problem with the SNP, actually, because at the start of my digest today, I played that very disturbing clip of one of Scotland's main civil servants seeming to think, it's a great laugh that he walks into Whitehall, and rather than trying to deal with the problems in the Scotland NHS or the cost of lockdown crisis, whatever it happens to be, in fact, he walks in and he loves it because actually the civil servants in Whitehall realise that all he wants to do is break up the kingdom. I mean, this is why Scotland is really suffering at the moment, isn't it? Because the civil servants and the SNP government, they're focused on only one thing, independence at any cost.
I believe Nicola Sturgeon wants to be in the history books. She wants to be. She wants to be the leader.
She will be.
Yeah, she wants to be the leader that broke up the UK, that gave Scotland independence.
She's got a superiority complex.
Right. So her name will then be bounded around for hundreds of years.
Well, Nicola, that's what she wants to be.
Yeah.
She's also an elected leader, unlike the British or UK.
No, because our Prime Minister went through the democratic process, so yes, they are. And we didn't vote for them, but that's not the democracy we have in this country, so that's not even part of this debate.
I'm not in Scotland, but I cannot see how the majority of Scottish people can now look at Nicola Sturgeon and think that she is the future and she is right.
Not. She's the past, isn't she? I mean, in a way, Dawn, it's been fascinating, hasn't it, the past couple of weeks? Because all of a sudden... And look, I know I've always been critical of Sturgeon for her motives.
You haven't mentioned that.
Well, no, I have.
No.
I call her scheming Sturgeon, as you know. But I have also admitted, Dawn, that she has been very politically popular and she's had a clever strategy. I think that strategy is now blowing up in her face. She doesn't know what to do.
She's an incredibly good politician. She is a very good politician.
Still going down this path? Because to me it feels deranged, and she doesn't have the support of the majority of Scots.
No, I think the path she's going down now is very dangerous, but I think she is a very clever politician. Up until now, the whole transgender and the women's rights thing worries me enormously, as I've said.
But that will turn off a lot of normal Scots too.
Of course it will. It really will, and I do not understand why she's doing it. Things are fine as they are, and I just wanted to say to Ashley, you know, I mean, this sort of like self-identifying means, you know, either Dan or Adam could, you know, live as a woman in theory who's even checking out on this, and then go into, you know, the nightclub toilet you were talking about, your gym changing room, your swimming pool changing room, because they are identifying as a woman.
So
I mean,
phase 2 of the Gender Recognition Act, from what I understand, which is coming up, is that's where they would put amendments in there. So there would be scope
No,
to
we'll be
say,
too late
for
for that.
example,
But she
you
wants the
cannot,
bill- she wants
if
the
you
bill-
are a sex
But this
offender,
sets a precedent as well, doesn't it?
Put them in prison.
I'm a father of 2 daughters, and I'm scared what the future holds.
Yeah.
If this happens in Scotland, it will creep here. And, you know,
It will once.
and I do not want men in dresses with makeup on or whatever going into changing rooms and making. It's not just about danger and safety. It's about feeling comfortable. Women need to feel comfortable.
You just wait until woke Labour's in power and see what happens in the rest of the UK.
Well, they don't know what a woman is, so I mean...
No, but that's the concern. Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks, Ashley James, my superstar panel are here all night. But coming up, should Red Wall MPs defect from the Conservatives to reform UK and spark a pro-Brexit political revolution? Nigel Farage live in the studio at 9:35. But first, should policing guidelines be changed to prevent trans officers from strip-searching women? Surrey's Police and Crime Commissioner Lisa Townsend, who suggested that change, goes head-to-head with trans writer and broadcaster Frida Wallace in the clash. Next, let me know what you think. Email me, Dan at gbnews.uk. Tweet news in the handle at GBNews. Our poll running there too. The results after the break.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Red Wall heroes Lee Anderson and Nigel Farage both on the way, but it's time now for the clash. A Surrey police commissioner has found herself at the centre of a blazing trans row after saying recently transitioned officers should not be allowed to conduct female strip searches. Leading crime czar Lisa Townsend, who I'm delighted to say will join me in just a minute, is being slammed by campaigners for criticising current National Police Chiefs Council guidelines that advise forces to recognise the new identity of transgender officers from the moment they transition. It adds once a transgender colleague has transitioned, they will search persons of the same gender as their own lived gender. In some cases, the searching officers can be swapped out if the detainee ejects. But what do you think? Should policing guidelines be changed to prevent trans officers from strip searching women? Email me Dan at gbnews.uk, tweet me at gbnews, our Twitter poll running there too, the results shortly. But going head to this now is the woman at the centre of this storm, Surrey Police Commissioner Lisa Townsend, and the trans writer and host of the Gender Nebulous podcast, Frida Wallace. It's great to have both of you here. So, Lisa, do you want to set out your stall first and explain why you think this is important?
Hi, Dan. Yeah, well, it is important because what we're talking about is women who are being searched, intimately searched, at a point when they're really vulnerable. So they've been brought into custody. Any of us potentially could be brought into custody. Remember, these aren't women who have been tried or convicted of any crime at all. They've been brought into custody. They may themselves be a victim of abuse, of trauma, have mental health issues. And what we're doing is we're saying to them, well, the feelings of a male officer who may have very recently, as recently as this morning, decided that they would like to identify as a woman are more important than your sex-based rights. And that, to me, cannot be right. And so we do need to take on a case-by-case basis. I'm not saying there should be a blanket policy here. I think that's really dangerous. But I do think that in the interests of protecting women, and we know that police aren't always as great as they should be. The vast majority of policemen, the vast majority of men, the vast majority of trans women are good people just trying to get on with their jobs. But if we've learned anything in the last few years, it is that we need to question some people, including, sadly, the police, about their motives.
Freddie, you disagree. Why?
Well, I don't totally disagree. She did make some points. I mean, in the cases of vulnerable women, people that maybe, need a bit of extra care, police deal with a lot of challenging behaviours. People deal with people at very extreme levels of stress. This is something that police officers have to take into a consideration. What I would like to ask her, how many trans police officers are there in the Surrey area?
That's a really good question, actually, and I don't know. I've asked.
Of course, you don't know because there are none.
No, that's actually not true. I'm conscious of one because that person emailed me today.
So this one police officer presents you with the need to have an article in the Daily Mail and come onto a national TV station and talk about that. When your job was to look into misogyny in the police force, but what you're doing is looking the wrong way. While you're doing this, you're not looking at misogyny in the police force. So what is your job exactly? Is it to find the one trans officer and make an issue with that, or is it to help women? And if I was a police officer, would you have a problem with me searching a woman? And when you say strip search, that just means taking a coat off. There are very different levels of strip searching.
OK, you've made some good points there, Frida, so let's let Lisa respond.
Yeah, so my job as Police and Crime Commissioner is of course, quite a wide one. My job is to hold the Chief Constable to account on behalf of the people in my particular case, Surrey. But I also do take a very particular interest in the safety of women and girls and male violence in particular. Against women and girls across Surrey. But it's not just Surrey where I care about women. I care about women right across the country.
Yeah, but your job is Surrey. Your job is based in Surrey, and there were 23,000 sexual assault and sex-based crimes in Surrey this year. And looking at trans women isn't going to change that. And what we find is that when people do look the wrong way, that's when perpetrators go unchecked. This is why Wayne Couzens was allowed to be a police officer for so long, because people are looking the wrong way. And, activists like
Do you think this is a distraction, Frida? Is that what you're saying?
Pardon? Sorry, Dan?
You think this is a distraction from the real issues going on in the police?
I fully understand the need in certain... I work for the ambulance service. When I go to attend a lady, I'm fully aware she may be very vulnerable in that situation, but my transness, I've never met somebody who's looking at me being trans. They just want help. But I know it's a different situation in the police because you're dealing with people who've perhaps committed some You know, they might have a knife on you. You don't know. We don't know the reason why you're searching someone. So that's a completely different situation. But what I'm saying, the trans part is not the important part. The important part is that civil servant, the person that's working on behalf of the police, is doing the best job they can. It's got the trans bit doesn't matter. It might matter in certain situations.
I would agree, and the problem isn't the trans bit. The problem, I think, is self-ID. And you mentioned, Frida mentions Wayne Couzens, who, of course, is unfortunately a really unfortunate but good example of where we know that not all police officers, unfortunately, are quite the people that we want them to be or we believe they are. Now, my concern with self-ID...
How would self-ID change that? You know,
so potentially... So, Frida, I'm happy to answer your question, Frida. So the potential problem with self-ID is if you have a police officer, and this accounts for lots of other areas, including prisons, if you have a police officer who does have a desire to do something to women that none of us would be happy with, self-ID would allow that person to self-ID into that situation, and then the NPCC guidelines say, well, then that person is allowed to intimately search a woman. So that's where I have an issue. Now, I do take issue with somebody telling me about the issues I can and can't care about. I care about male violence against women. I care about a lot of other issues as well. But this is something that, I do feel strongly about, because the women of Surrey write to me and tell me that it bothers them, and I act on their behalf.
OK, Frida, I'll give you the final word.
Well, I just find this thing performative because we know Lisa has worked with the LGB Alliance, who are a known trans hostile group. She does work with them. She's worked with We Are Fair. She spoke to people from We Are Fair Cop. We know that...
I don't think it's fair to describe the LGB Alliance as trans, as anti-trans.
Are you sure, Dan? Do you want to see some of their tweets? Do you want to have a look at who follows them and what the content of their mentions are? Because it's not pretty, Dan. And they call people they call me on Twitter a paedophile because of this kind of discourse. And this happens on a daily basis. It's not a joke anymore. And somebody's going to get hurt. And it will be because of these kind of words. An innocent trans person is going to get hurt.
OK, well, it's been a fascinating debate. Thank you so much for having it. That is the host of the Gender Nebulous podcast, Frida Wallace, and the Surrey Police Commissioner, Lisa Townsend. So who do you agree with? Should policing guidelines be changed to prevent trans officers from strip searching women? Elliot on Twitter says strip searching should be performed by persons of the same biological sex as the person being searched, whether they are women or men. It's a humiliating process. There's no need to make it worse than it has to be. From Whiskey Fat, exactly how many times has this actually been an issue? Whereas several times the Met have strip searched unaccompanied minors. Let's look at the real issue rather than making stuff up. And from Julian on email, it should be your sex at birth that determines who you can search. Anything else is just woke idiocy. And your verdict is now in. Well, it's overwhelming. 92% of you agree that trans police should be stopped from strip searching women. Just 8% of you say they shouldn't. Coming up, as the government axes plans to turn back migrants in the Channel, is this proof we've given up on protecting our borders? Westminster's toughing-talking MP tackles that and more in The Real World with Lee Anderson at 9:45. But first, as pro-EU David Miliband plots a return to the Labour front bench, should Red Wall MPs deflect to Reform UK and fight to save Brexit? Nigel Farage live on those reports of his secret talks with disillusioned Tory lawmakers straight after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra. I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory.
twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
What the Farage time now, and Nigel is in the studio. Well, I don't know where to start this week because in terms of politics, your involvement of it, of course, things are really heating up. But can we start with maybe some of the news that you don't always cover on your own show because it involves your political life, your Reform UK life, which I can talk about more easily. And of course, there have been these growing reports, Nigel, that you might be in talks with Tory MPs, Red Wall MPs specifically, about defecting from the Tories to Reform. Is this becoming a more serious proposition as the migrant crisis gets out of control?
The truth of it is, let's take the migrant crisis. This is hotels filling up all over the country, seaside towns, Midlands towns, northern towns, people enraged by what they're seeing. Social housing waiting lists get ever longer, GP appointments get ever longer, and they see all these young men getting in their eyes everything. So deep resentment. But even worse than that, it's a betrayal of Brexit. I mean, laughably, the deluded Rishi Sunak said in the House of Commons today, I back Brexit because it brings back control of our borders. I mean, you what?
But come on, even the Tory backbenchers were laughing at that, Nigel.
Well, they were. No, they were. I mean, it's embarrassing. So, look, I think a lot of these Red Wall MPs understand that unless something was drastically going to change, and that would mean a huge amendment to the Human Rights Act, leaving ECHR, or redefining the 1951 definition of what a refugee is, or perhaps all three at the same time, that they're basically gone. And they know that and they understand that. Now, we're way too early to talk about Red Wall Tory MPs defecting to Reform. But what we are talking about, and the conversations that I'm having with people, is there any point to the Conservative Party? Is there actually any point to a party? I mean, if it's now become high tax, big state, having launched a war on small business, is the Conservative Party reformable, or does something need to come along to replace it? Now, I know it's been around for 200 years, so that's the level of conversation, to be honest.
And Reform has launched a big advertising campaign this week, really honing in on the concept of stopping the boats. Let's have a little look.
We have to talk about immigration.
And of course, this coincides with lots of coverage in the mainstream media, who maybe for a while thought you were off the political front line, now speculating on a comeback. The Mail on Sunday, Trevor Kavanagh and the Sun.
Yeah, I saw all that. I mean, look, I was in the English Channel 2 years ago. I was out 2 years ago during lockdown.
I remember speaking to you.
It was my good excuse to not be locked down.
You were working on the channel.
I always thought this would become a huge issue, and it is. It's massive.
You said it.
You know, it leaks into everything, doesn't it? It leaks into housing, it leaks into health, everything. And our population explosion, you know, which continues in this country. And I mean, even legal migration. I mean, can you believe, you know, the net figures of 500,000? So these are the numbers. I think this is becoming the biggest issue in British politics. It's likely to for some years to come. I personally, I'll be honest with you, I'm very happy being here at GB News.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
No, I genuinely am. And I think the channel is growing and maturing, getting a lot more influence. Getting back into active frontline politics is not top of my bucket list. It's not what I really want to do, but who's to say where we're going to be in 18 months' time?
Well, the problem is, Nigel, all of us who voted for Brexit now feel betrayed because we saw those net migration figures. And this was literally the opposite of why we ignored the establishment in 2016. I mean, literally, we ignored the Prime Minister today. We ignored all of the economists. We ignored it because we wanted
Barack Obama.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of it.
No, it is.
And we see these numbers exploding.
No, that is, and everybody running a small business thought being away from the EU rule book might make life just a little bit easier. No supply side reform of any kind at all. A fishing industry saying, what was that all about? Nothing's improved. And the truth of it is, the Conservative Party was against Brexit, overwhelmingly against Brexit. It picked it up as a talisman after those European elections in 2019, won a vast majority off the back of it, but those at the top of the Conservative Party, they never really believed in it. They just used it for short-term political gain. And I now fear, you know, with Tony Blair, and we've got the other Miliband is back from New York, and they're all saying we must adhere to EU rules. And then the next conversation 2 years down the road is, well, if we're obeying all the rules and having no say, we may as well rejoin.
Well, of course, and they're moving as a bloc, aren't they? It's the establishment bloc, because you can see the change coming in the MSM too, who are now emboldened to talk about Brexit again. Piers Morgan, who was a Remainer, but then said he supported the vote, now saying there's a massive issue and there should be a second referendum. But you meant...
Oh, I mean, I have to laugh. Piers Morgan, who believes in nothing.
Well, speaking of people who believe in nothing, David Miliband, you mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
This was really shocking what he had to say on LBC earlier in the week. I know you've seen it already, but in case you missed it, have a watch.
Just spell it out. What kind of relationship would be a rational one? Let me tell you my starting point. There's a regulatory bloc in the world that is defined by Europe. There's a regulatory bloc in the world defined by America, and there's a regulatory bloc in the world defined by China. There isn't going to be a regulatory bloc defined by the United Kingdom. We have to decide. We're not going to be a member of the European Union, but aligning with European Union standards, given that it's our largest export market, makes common sense.
Well, what's the bet? He's Keir Starmer's Brexit minister. Once Labour's in power, because that's where this is heading, a return to the front bench for the ultimate Ramona.
Yeah. And I love that. Regulatory bloc. All they can think about is regulations. What about wealth creation?
Great.
You know, what about millions of men and women out there going out, taking risk, doing their own thing? That's where real wealth creation comes from. And that's the final nail in the coffin, I think, for the Conservative Party. That budget was a war against sole traders, self-employed and small companies. They're putting up corporation tax by 30% on the 1st of April. They're putting up dividend tax, that's how most small companies pay themselves, by 1.25%, and they will not allow any thought about IR35 rules, which make it so difficult for independent contractors.
IR35 is a disgrace.
Disgusting.
And it actually wasn't going to cost all that much in the scheme of things to rid us of that horror. And that's the thing. As much as people want to keep attacking Truss and Kwarteng, there was so much to celebrate in that.
In direction of travel, I actually cheered. It was the first time, I think actually for over 30 years, that a Conservative Party had tried to reduce the size of the state. It was a very modest 0.5% reduction, but they were trying. They may have bungled the detail, but the direction of travel was right, and we are now back to big tax, big state. Look, I have to say, they may have survived for 200 years. What the Tories now face in the next 2 years is existential. And what people like me have got to decide, as we head towards that election in 2 years' time, is there a real opportunity under a first-past-the-post system to put together a new political movement that ultimately replaces the Conservative Party?
Well, because there has to be an alternative to the Labour Party.
Yes.
Because the problem is, Nigel, Brexiteers do not want to vote for the man who spent 2 years telling us that what he believed more than anything else was thwarting the biggest democratic movement in British history. And I don't care what Keir Starmer says. I know he's making all of the right noises to the Mail on Sunday, pretending that he's more of a Brexiteer than Sunak. I do not believe it. And if he wants Miliband back in a potential Labour cabinet, I genuinely think Brexit is that threat.
Do you know what? We need a political party that actually says, do you know what? We're going to put the interests of our country and our people first. We're going to be proudly independent. We're going to defend our borders. We're not going to fall prey to globalist conspiracies or coups. We're just going to put our own people first. And I'm not sure whether that's a right-wing message or a left-wing message. I don't think it matters, but it's a party that stands up for the nation, and we need that very, very badly. And Disraeli said all those years ago, the Conservative Party is a national party, meaning it represented the nation, or it is nothing. Well, those words are coming back.
And I guess it is a case of watch this space. Nigel Farage, and of course, Nigel will be back 7 o'clock tomorrow night here on GB News. Thank you, Nigel. But coming up, after the late Queen's former lady-in-waiting resigns over unfortunate comments to a black woman, will the Sussex squad and the monarchy's other haters and wreckers now use this to wrongly accuse the royals of racism? My superstar panel join me to debate that. It's a real headache for the palace, actually, in the media buzz after 10. But first, as the government axes plans to turn back migrants in the Channel, is this proof we've given up on protecting our borders? And is it time that we leave the ECHR, as Nigel mentioned just then, for good? Join me to explore that and more in The Real World with Lee Anderson, Westminster's toughest talking MP, straight after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show, Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness,
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Are authorities, are communities doing all they can to combat violent crime? With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Time now for the real world with Lee Anderson, Westminster's toughest talking MP. And more than 3,500 illegal migrants have crossed the Channel to England in this month alone, but we're no closer to stopping the invasion. Not least after the government axed plans to physically turn away boats in the water. So Home Office Minister Robert Jenrick previously said there were only limited circumstances in which the, quote, pushback tactics would be used to physically drag away dinghies. But the proposals are now completely scrapped. So, Lee, lots of folk are going to say, again, this is your party giving up on truly trying to stop the boats, because I've been saying for 2 years that pushback is necessary. It's not the only tactic, it's not the only thing that's going to work, but it needs to be part of a smorgasbord of measures.
It's one of the many tactics the Australians use, as you know, Dan. Something I've supported like yourself for over 2 years. I don't know why we're not brave enough or why we're not manning up to do this. Look, I've met the Home Secretary and the previous Home Secretary to talk about pushbacks. For some reason, they seem reluctant to do it. But look, you know, what's the consequence of not doing this, Dan? Again, we've got hundreds and hundreds of young men arriving on our shores this week. Where are they going? They're going to Manston. They're going straight into hotels, dispersed into the community. It's an absolute... Honestly, I cannot apologise enough, Dan, for this. It's my government, it's my party that's doing this. I don't support my party and government on this. They're on notice. The public's got them on notice. I think there's some MPs in the Conservative Party got them on notice on this. It's absolutely shocking. They need to man up, get a grip and sort this out and start turning these boats back.
Because even since our last conversation last week, Lee, we've learned 40,000 are still being housed in hotels. So that's not only £7 million a day in terms of the cost, but think of what that's doing to the local communities like Skegness, but up and down the country, where tourists can't come, where businesses are being destroyed, where people are having weddings cancelled and events cancelled. This is actually starting to destroy the fabric of communities.
It's affecting an old hospitality industry, DJs as well. You know, they've been weddings. Look, in France, we see these people living in tents and cardboard boxes and living in the jungle. Yet when they come to England, they're in a hotel. They're ferried straight off to a 4-star hotel. They're making the TikTok videos, they're complaining if they haven't got Wi-Fi, they're getting feedback forms for their food. It's an absolute disgrace. Like I say, Dan, I come on here every week. I'm in the chamber every week banging on about this. It's disgraceful. I feel sick. When these boats turn up on our shores, I feel absolutely sick. What are we playing at? Come on, government, sort this out.
And that's the illegal side, Lee. But then the other bombshell this week actually relates to the legal net migration figures at a record number, 504,000. That's unpalatable to your constituents, isn't it?
Massively. I mean, we promised to be the party of to be tough on immigration. We introduced a points-based immigration system, which would allow the best and the brightest in. I don't always agree with that, Dan. But look, 500,000 people coming in. I've got constituents who can't get a doctor's appointment, they can't see a dentist, they can't get on the social housing list. And what we're saying, we're trying to grow the economy by increasing immigration. What a load of rubbish that is. We need to sort it out. There's enough people in this country actually unemployed, out of work, on the door, whatever you call it, to fill the labour shortage. But we're not brave enough and we haven't got the guts to do it.
We've got to get the figures down to the tens of thousands, don't we? That's the only way that we can cope. And the thing is, you've got a Home Secretary who I know believes in that passionately.
She does. She does believe in it, Dan. But, you know, we bang on about this net zero journey, for this net zero nonsense. Let's have a net zero immigration. You know, one in, one out. If we've got a skill shortage, let's go to the labour force. We've got plenty on the dole in this country that need jobs or need forcing into the workplace.
So you say tens of thousands is actually too many?
I think it's too many.
We need to do net zero migration.
There's going to come a point in time, in 20, 30, 40, 50 years' time, when our children and grandchildren are going to say, Dad, Grandad, why didn't you sort this out? You know, we're full, we can't get a house, we can't get a doctor's appointment, we can't get a school place. You let this happen, we've let this happen, we should be ashamed of ourselves.
The other thing is, Lee, it would be hugely politically popular. It could actually be the way for the Tories to win the next election, because we know, no matter what he says, and I was just saying to Nigel before the break, Keir Starmer, he's giving all of these interviews to the right-wing press, trying to make it look like he's tough on Brexit and tough on the borders. What absolute rubbish. We know that at his soul, Keir Starmer is a Ramona who believes in open borders. Lee, he spent years saying that we had to do free movement with the EU. So we cannot trust Labour. This would be the way for the Tories to actually win against all odds.
This is low-hanging fruit, this is. We can really go to town on this. And you quite rightly say that Sir Keir, he was promoting open borders, free movement. Now, all of a sudden, he's tough on migration. What a load of nonsense that is.
Well, it might be, but he's playing a blinder politically.
Oh, he played a blinder,
I mean, I totally disagree, and I don't believe him, but he is playing a blinder politically. But look, speaking of great politicians, it's the birthday today of Sir Winston Churchill, one of our greatest Britons ever, probably the greatest, although I think Queen Elizabeth II does come close. However, in recent years, we've seen nothing but disrespect of our World War II leader who saved us from Hitler. Here's a reminder.
Churchill was obsessed with his hatred for Indians.
I'm glad you're happy to promote as well as support and champion a racist.
Winston Churchill's legacy. Spoiler alert, the man was a white supremacist racist.
Lee, what is this about? Why are the left so obsessed with demonising the man who saved us from the clutches of Nazism?
The left, Dan, they hate our history, they hate our culture, they hate people like Sir Winston here. What they need dragging into a classroom, get a good history lesson to teach them about what actually Sir Winston did for this country. Look, in 1940, when that place over there was against him, he fought the establishment, he fought Parliament, he fought the whole of Europe, and he dragged us through that war. And without Sir Winston, Dan, we would speak in German today. God forbid that.
I know, exactly. It's very true. Now, Lee, I also want to talk about trouble in the Labour Party.
Yes.
Owen Jones, he's the left-wing agitator, obviously on the hard left of the party. He's at war with Keir Starmer over the selection process, right, about how you get MPs. Now, of course, you used to be a Labour councillor.
Yes.
You say now someone like you wouldn't be palatable.
We wouldn't, Dan. I mean, look at the boxes I tick. I'm white, I'm working class, I'm quite normal, I'm from the area that I represent. Labour Party don't want people like me. Actually, Owen Jones, I've got a little respect for at all. I think he's a bit of a political nuisance. But actually, I think he's a little bit right on this subject, because the Labour Party, they look to tick boxes. They don't look for the right candidate in the right area, and that's why, traditionally, they've been in a mess. I think they've actually scrapped now the all-women shortlist. I don't know how that's going to pan out with Eddie Izzard, though, when he stands in Sheffield. But again, they will ship candidates in from all over the country. I know they will. I'm still waiting to see which candidate they've got in Ashfield, but it won't be a working class person from Ashfield. It'll be some Ramona, some activist, somebody who's never had a proper job in the real life. They're in a bit of a mess, but like you said previously, Sir Keir is pandering to the right-wing press at the moment, but I don't think they'll get the selection process right at all.
And speaking of Ramona's coming back, David Miliband's clearly going to be shepherded into a Labour safe seat.
This is a man who campaigned to be leader. He was slagging off people earning 500 grand, slagging off bankers and people on high salaries. He then went to earn, goodness knows what, $1 million a year working for a charity which, by the way, still is getting British taxpayers' money. The man's a hypocrite. Bring him back to Ashfield. Let him stand against me.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, get him here.
I'd get the popcorn out for that one. And also, by the way, the ultimate Ramona. So if he is back in the cabinet, I think we know that Brexit is under serious threat under a Keir Starmer administration. But look, King of the North, Lee Anderson, the Conservative MP for Ashfield. Thank you so much, Lee. Coming up, has the Qatar World Cup exposed the selective outrage of the hypocrites at the BBC? Football legend Mark Lawrenson, a former BBC employee, of course, weighs in on this at 10:20. But first, after the late Queen's former lady-in-waiting resigns over unfortunate comments to a black woman, will the Sussex squad and the monarchy's other haters and wreckers use this to wrongly accuse the royals of racism? My superstar panel joined me for a big debate on this, plus I've got lots of new revelations straight after the break.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, your health and, yes, maybe even your life could be at risk after more than 10,000 ambulance workers, including paramedics and 999 call handlers, today followed nurses in voting to strike across England and Wales. So will their demands for what bosses describe as unaffordable pay rises collapse the NHS? I'll debate at 10:30 with my superstar panel, Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. As the late Queen Elizabeth the Great's lady-in-waiting resigns after decades of service for allegedly asking a black woman what part of Africa she's from, will this unfortunate faux pas now be used by the Sussex Squad and other royal family haters and wreckers to launch incorrect claims of racism? We'll get into that next. As the Walesers land on Harry and Meghan's turf, I'll find out from a very special US royal correspondent, Meghan's estranged sister Samantha Markle, who America's really backing in this PR battle. Don't miss her live stateside at 10:40. Has the Qatar World Cup exposed the selective outrage of the hypocrites at the BBC? Football legend and star pundit Mark Lawrenson hits out at the corporation that stabbed him in the back at 10:20. Plus, the police may have failed to get to grips with Just Stop Oil, but I reckon this absolute legend could take them down single-handedly.
You might not have something better to do with your life. We have to off. Get off the straight. Get off.
Go on, I'll bring you more of her and the stories going viral in the media buzz throughout the next hour. Greatest Britain Union jackass on the way to, and tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the press. First, though, the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you, Dan. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. The Prince of Wales says there's no place for racism in society. The statement coming after a royal aide was forced to resign over comments made at a reception. Ngozi Fulani, who's the founder of a domestic abuse charity, says she was repeatedly asked by Prince William's godmother where she really came from. Lady Susan Hussey then challenged her after she told her she was born in the UK and is British. Kensington Palace says the comments were unacceptable and it was right for her to step aside with immediate effect. More than 10,000 ambulance workers have voted to strike across 9 trusts in England and Wales next month. Unite Union are the latest to announce staff walkouts. They're joining thousands of 999 call handlers, ambulance technicians and paramedics who are also set to walk off the job. Other strikes will hit National Rail, as well as other train operators. More than 100 Eurostar staff will stop work. The announcements follow today's actions by university and college union members and postal workers. The government has asked police for the use of 400 cells to house prisoners because of overcrowding. Prison Minister Damien Hines told MPs there's been an unprecedented increase in the number of offenders over the last few months. He says it's partly due to the Criminal Bar Association's strike over the summer, which saw more people on remand. HSBC will close 114 bank branches across the UK. It says the decision comes as remote banking soars in popularity, with mobile app users almost tripling since 2017. The bank has also seen a decline in footfall since the COVID pandemic. It plans to invest tens of millions of pounds updating its remaining branches. A major trial of an experimental Alzheimer's drug has shown for the first time that early stages of the disease can be slowed. Scientists found after 18 months, lecanemab stalled progression by 27% compared with patients taking a placebo. However, experts warn as the medicine works during the initial stages of the disease, most won't benefit unless there's a revolution in spotting it. And Fleetwood Mac singer-songwriter Christine McVie has died at the age of 79. Her family said she passed away peacefully this morning following a short illness. The band Stevie Nicks has paid tribute, calling her my best friend in the whole world. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now in our Media Buzz. First front pages are in. So where are you really from is a headline in the Metro. This is, of course, about Lady Susan Hussey's resignation. We're going to be talking about it in just a moment. The Eye, though, leads with a warning from UK scientists that the country is playing with fire for their U-turn on COVID jabs. I think we'll be OK, actually. They say the UK is not prepared for a major COVID variant and lacks the capability to make jabs quickly. So I'm just checking. Is this Thursday, the 1st of December 2022? Yeah, it is, because I thought this was more like an Eye newspaper from 2021 or maybe 2020. No. That's the past. We're not going back there, folks. Don't let them try. My superstar panel are back with me now. Former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. So, on the day that William and Kate jetted off to America, it's been a turbulent time for the firm back at home after a bombshell race row concerning a royal household staff member. Ngozi Fulani, the chief executive of the black women's domestic abuse charity Sister Space, was invited to visit Buckingham Palace yesterday in an audience with the Queen Consort. But in a social media post this morning, Ngozi alleged that Lady Susan Hussey, she's a close friend of the late Queen Elizabeth II and Prince William's godmother. She's worked for the royal family for 60 years, made a crass interrogation about her background. In the transcript shared online, the British National claims that Lady Hussey continually scrutinised her African heritage, asking 8 times where she came from. In response, the Buckingham Palace spokesperson announced that Lady Hussey had resigned from her role and wished to express her profound apologies for the hurt caused. A spokesperson for the Prince of Wales added, "Racism has no place in our society. The comments were unacceptable, and it is right that the individual, that's his godmother, has stepped aside with immediate effect." Now, I want to be very clear with you. It is terrible that Ngozi was made to feel uncomfortable in any way at Buckingham Palace. But it is important to note that last year the charity worker made the shocking and unproven claim that Meghan Markle was a victim of domestic violence from the King and Queen. Offering her view on today's revelation, a member of our superstar panel, Dominique Samuels, tweeted, "Someone asking where you're from is not always racist. I think a lot of ethnic minorities assume it's malicious. I have been asked by ethnic minority taxi drivers countless times where I'm really from. I just gently say, do you mean ethnicity, and move on." So to me, this story is a lot about context. And Adam Brooks, I've got a lot of feelings on this because Lady Hussey, I think we can all admit, made some clumsy comments, right? She's an 83-year-old woman. She's grieving the death of her very close friend, Queen Elizabeth II. She's now been dragged through the mud cancelled, accused of racism by her own godson. At the same time, Adam, it does feel like this woman, Ngozi, has a history of accusing the royal family of racism. So I just think this all needs to be put into context. Have we overreacted here?
I lost my nan 18 months ago. Would I call my nan a racist person? No, I wouldn't. Would I have said that she was ignorant in some of her views and clumsy in some of her language? Yes, I would. Do I think her comments today, I've read the full transcript now, and it's not good. Do I think she was ignorant and clumsy in what she said? Yes, I do. Do I believe that she was also arrogant as well in that?
Can I also just clarify, though, that is the full transcript posted by Ngozi, so it wasn't recorded or anything like that. It's based on her recollection. There has been no denial, though, from Buckingham Palace that she did say this. I'd also just want to show you another tweet from Ngozi. This dates back to the Platinum Jubilee, if we can take a look at it. And she wrote, "Harry and Meghan won't be allowed on the balcony. They're in a completely different category to Andrew. He's linked to sexual crimes. Harry married and had children with a black woman. An all-exclusively white balcony, the only black people banned, racism." So Dawn Neeson, the reason I'm showing these tweets, because the rest of the media isn't doing it, right? And what we do here at GB News is we provide both sides of the story, and we provide context to important stories when the MSM just want to go down one path. To me, Dawn, all I'm saying is that while these comments from Lady Hussey were clearly, I agree with Adam, that they were clumsy in the sort of thing that one of our grandmas might say, it also seems like this woman may have gone to Buckingham Palace with an agenda, because if you think that Charles is a domestic abuser and you think the royal family is racist, why do you want to go to one of their functions?
Because Ngozi, to be fair to her, runs a very good charity in East London, which is where I'm from. And I think it's disappointing that we are talking about this issue rather than violence against women and girls, which is what this whole event was about. So, firstly, I think we should be talking about that. But with this, we've all been sidetracked onto this now. Do I think Ngozi went there with an agenda? No, I don't. I think she is... Look, if she was offended, then that is her right to say so. I agree with Adam. I think what Susan Hussey said was clumsy, it was rude, it was ignorant, it was certainly classist. I don't know the full context of what this conversation... I've seen the transcript that's put out. I don't know the full context, the aggression in the language, if there was any. So I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't witness this conversation. I think, does this mean that the royal family is riddled with racism, as Ngozi seemed to imply? No, I don't.
But that's what this is now going to be used for.
I
because
think
the Sussex squad in America, they've got Kate and William over there, and they love this narrative that our British royal family is racist. You've got Harry and Meghan picking up this award from the Robert Kennedy Foundation because they accused the royal family of structural
Harry that once
racism.
dressed up as a Nazi and called a fellow trainee in the army the P word. OK, right, OK, well, he knows a lot about racism then, obviously, doesn't he?
Yeah, but this is going to do real damage to the royal family.
Well, look, I agree. It is, as I said, it's clumsy, it's rude, it's ignorant. Did she mean it in a racist way? I don't know. No. I was not there. No. Look, asking somebody where they are from can be interpreted in the wrong way, as I believe it has in this case. I said, I don't know, I wasn't there. Yeah. But, I mean, we are human beings. We are interested in where people are from.
Well, I tweeted earlier today, Dawn, that people ask me all the time questions about my accent, because I'm actually a British citizen. I've been a British citizen since birth. My parents were born here, but obviously I was born in New Zealand, so I have a funny New Zealand accent. But because I'm white, no one thinks that's racist, and I'm not offended by it, but people ask me literally all the time, where are you from? Why are you here? What's your accent about? Imagine if I tried to turn every one of those incidents into an example of racism.
But you are not a person of colour, and that is the issue here, isn't it? Look, I mean, the way this questioning was phrased is profoundly wrong. But I don't know whether Susan Hussey was being racist. I suspect she probably wasn't.
I
don't know.
I would say she was probably being old-fashioned. And
Yes.
Ashley James, you've been... sorry, I've seen you looking increasingly frustrated during this conversation. Why are you frustrated?
I'm not frustrated. I just think it's important to remember that obviously we are all white, and there is a very big difference between, do I think she's racist and a malicious, horrible person that hates people that aren't white? Of course not. But what I think we have to understand is it's this kind of unconscious bias, or what black and ethnic minorities would call microaggressions, which could be well-intentioned.
I can't stand those two terms.
Which could be well-intentioned, yeah, but you never have to experience it. And,
I do. I'm a gay man. I'm a minority.
I have friends, like, for example, my best friend who...
I don't want to live my life as a victim.
Born and raised in England, and she is constantly, because she's half Filipino, constantly asked, where are you from? And she'll say... Oh, I grew up in London.
Yeah, but I'm constantly asked.
Where are you from? Yeah, but that's based on your accent, and that's very different.
Why is it different? Why is it different?
Because it's basically because there are lots of English people who are not white, and when you say where are you from, and then they say England, and they go, but no, where are you from?
But what is your heritage? Where is your family from?
Okay, different question though.
Yeah, but that's how it should be phrased.
Basically what you're saying is it's an inadequate.
Okay, so we can cancel people.
Response.
No, but we can cancel people now for saying where are you from? Okay, well we can accuse. Okay, not cancel.
I don't think she should have actually
we
lost
can
her
accuse
job.
people of microaggressions and unconscious bias because they simply ask where are you from. I had a conversation with my taxi driver the other day from the airport about his Pakistani heritage. It was absolutely fascinating. That did involve me asking the question, where were you from?
I think it's a very different thing of like having conversation around someone's heritage. But also, I think the issue here is that she continued to ask the question.
The issue is that she was unaware that she was being offensive. That's the main thing.
What I was going to say is it is an inadequate response if an ethnic minority person says they're from the UK. It should be enough to say, I'm from the UK, and then they could say, where's your heritage? Do I think she should have lost her job? No. Do I think she should have apologised? Yes, even if it wasn't... even if it was a well-meaning question.
And Dawn, you've covered the royal family for decades, and so I'm just interested to know how you think they're dealing with this, because for me, I think actually this is going to open up some potentially a worrying situation with the royal family, because, you know, under the Queen, the late Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, or Queen Elizabeth the Great, as I call her, there was very much a never explain, never complain policy.
Quite.
And what we've seen today is Buckingham Palace under King Charles and Kensington Palace under Prince William acting much more like politicians or celebrities, rushing out statements, dealing with the media cycle, throwing Lady Susan Hussey under the bus, which, by the way, would have really upset the late Queen Elizabeth. 60 years of loyal service she gave to the Queen. Didn't get paid for it, thrown under the bus because of one mistake. And, Dawn, I think it's really careful that the royal family sometimes have to be above a Twitter storm.
But the problem with this, Dan, is they were damned if they did and damned if they didn't. Because if they hadn't have done anything and Susan Hussey hadn't have lost her job, then that would have actually added more fuel to the whole royal family are racist. What this woman did was racist. They're defending her, etc., etc. So by putting a statement out, I think they've hoped to nip it in the bud, especially as we know with William and Kate actually in America at the moment. The timing...
But it's different, though, isn't it? It's a noted different to how the royal family would have dealt with this.
Of course it is.
Under the Queen, the late
Absolutely. I don't believe that under the late Queen this would have happened.
OK, final word, Ashley.
Dan, you're going to hate this, but do you know what could have solved this problem and saved Lady Hussey a very unfortunate ending to her great years of service? Woke training.
No.
She could have been trained and understood why it wasn't the right thing to say. This is why it's important.
Do you know what it does show?
Do you want to put out 83-year-olds through woke training?
Well, she wouldn't have been in this
I think the royals and the staff need to get out in the real world a little bit more.
Well, exactly. And actually, this is perfect, actually. You're not going to believe this because it sort of relates. This week has seen the eco-terrorists of Just Stop Oil return to the streets of London with commuters raging as police appeared unable or unwilling to intervene. But thankfully, the residents of London aren't quite so soft, as proven by this plucky gran. She certainly hasn't gone on woke training because she didn't hold back in telling the climate extremists exactly what she thought of their behaviour. Watch.
Of course they are, the police. You might not have something better to do with your life. We have the off. Get off the street. Get off. Get off. You don't think when you got a job, you get a job. Get a job and get off the streets.
Get a job and get off the streets. Yes, super grand. No woke training there, Ashley Roberts. And you know what? That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see from our greatest generation, some home truths to these idiots who had no idea what it was like to live through World War II. Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Dawn Neeson, thank you so much. But coming up, after more than 10,000 ambulance workers, including paramedics and 999 call handlers, vote for industrial action, could this be the most deadly strike yet? My superstar panel return to debate that and get a glimpse at more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages and the media buzz. But first, has the World Cup exposed the selective outrage of the hypocrites at the BBC? Football legend Mark Lawrenson. It's out at the broadcaster that stabbed him in the back. He's here straight after the break.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. Now England's virtue signalling squad actually did their talking on the pitch for once last night as they thrashed Wales 3-0 to qualify for the knockout stages. But it's the woke BBC's hypocritical coverage of the pitch that's overshadowed this World Cup. Here's a reminder of multimillionaire social justice warrior Gary Lineker's virtue signalling monologue that he kicked off the tournament with.
Ever since FIFA chose Qatar back in 2010,
The smallest nation to have hosted football's greatest competition has faced some big questions, from accusations of corruption to the treatment of migrant workers. Stick to football, say FIFA. Well, we will, for a couple of minutes at least.
And then there's Dubai vacationer Alex Scott's ridiculous and hypocritical rainbow armband stunt after the England and Welsh FAs pathetically backed down to FIFA on that meaningless gesture. And I don't recall the BBC being this political and holier than thou in their coverage when Russia hosted the World Cup in 2018 or when communist China hosted the Olympics. Let's be honest, if they really had a problem with Qatar, they simply would have refused to travel there. So let me bring in former Liverpool footballer Mark Lawrenson, who spent 30 years at the BBC as a pundit and co-commentator. So, Mark, I was absolutely fascinated to hear from you on this. I mean, do you think the BBC has focused too much on virtue signalling during this World Cup? Because I have to say I'm sick of it.
You're sick of it? Well, you don't have to watch, Dan, do you? That's certainly one thing you can do. Yeah. As we say to everyone, listen, I think you're always going to get that at the start of the competition. Everybody's making the point. I think one of the problems that they've had is the fact, and it's linked to the FA, is why didn't Kane just wear the armband and taken the punishment? And then, and I think the Germans would have done it. I think everybody would have followed suit. And in the end, FIFA would have had to retreat. So there's been a lot of hot air spoken about it in many different places and many different countries. But look, it is what it is now, and I think slowly but surely it's a football that's going to kick us on, isn't it? Even if you're not going to watch it.
Well, it is. Look, I never said I was personally going to boycott it, but I would never personally travel to Qatar. And I'm a gay guy. I would never work in Qatar. So I think that's what I have a problem with, Mark, when I see people like Beckham and Neville and Lineker who say that they care about gay people, they care about women's rights, but actually, if they really had an issue, they just wouldn't go. That's where I stand on this.
Well, I think, I can fully understand where you're coming from, Dan, but then I would say we probably wouldn't have had any World Cups for the last however many years, would we? Would we have gone to South Africa? No. Would we have gone to Brazil? Probably no. But as you know, and everybody knows, the world's not about that, is it? It's all about money. And, it's FIFA, and it's always will be. And they're now talking that maybe Saudi Arabia might get the World Cup after America. Well,
that will happen.
That will happen. Of course it will happen.
That will absolutely happen.
Absolutely, totally. 100%.
But
so what do you do?
Well, no, exactly. But the thing is, Mark, I have no problem, though, with all of these people going to cover it, all of these people going to play. I've always said this. I just want them to stop virtue signalling. Do you see what I mean? Because it's so ironic and so hypocritical to be making money from a regime that does these things or visiting the country and then virtue signalling. That's my point. I just want the focus to be on the sport, because I completely agree. You wouldn't have World Cups, you wouldn't have Olympic Games if we started looking at the human rights record of all of the countries it's hosted in.
Right. Well, I think from now on, because obviously we're about to reach the knockout stage, everybody will be going potty about the games.
Yeah.
So I think
well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. What did you make of last night? Because I know it's one of those old cliches, but it truly was a game of two halves, right?
Yeah, well, I think the thing with England is very good against Iran, very ordinary against the USA, very good last night. So just hoping at the weekend that they're not very good against Senegal, isn't it, on Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday night.
So you probably get at least 4 days now of no more virtue signalling until we decide what happens on Sunday night and whether England come home or they go through to the next stage of the knockout.
And what's your prediction?
I think it'll be very sunny on Sunday, that's for certain. I think England will win, actually. I just think they've got too many big guns for Senegal, and also the number of people that England can bring off the bench, the quality of the players that England can bring off the bench. Really, the opposition don't have anything like that. So as long as they're in the game, England, I think they'll win. But now the problem is, what team does he pick? Because everybody started to play well again.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, would you have Foden there? And also, I think Southgate is playing for his job, isn't he? I mean, if we were to go out now, he'd struggle.
Well, I think no. You know what? I think if England went out now, I think he'd resign anyway, because I do think that managing England, there's like just a shelf life as much as anything, and I think he knows that if England go out the next stage, that he'll say thank you, but no thank you. You know, he's done a really, really good job. It's just hopefully, he might at least get them to the final. Which would be fantastic. I mean, the country would probably self-combust, but there you go. You'd definitely get no virtue signalling then, though, would you?
No, I know. We'd all turn a blind eye to all of Gareth Southgate's woke ways if he gets England to the final. I think if the team are knocked out on Sunday, there will be more question marks, Mark, about his coaching style. But look, fascinating stuff. We'll keep in touch with, of course, former Liverpool footballer and legendary ex-BBC pundit Mark Lawrenson. An absolute pleasure. But coming up, who is America supporting in the royal stateside battle between the Prince and Princess of Wales and the Sussexes? Well, Meghan's half-sister Samantha Markle gives her take as our special correspondent at 10:40 in Uncancelled. But next, as 10,000 ambulance workers vote to strike, are they putting lives at risk? I'll ask my superstar panel straight after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio, and online.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Back to the media buzz to now with tomorrow's news tonight. first front page. Well, actually, it's not the first front pages, but more front pages are in. And The Guardian reveals that 70% of England's water firms are owned by foreign businesses, many of which are based in international tax havens. This revelation comes as calls grow for the industry to be held to account over sewage dumping, leaks and shortages. I am the one and only Three Lions mascot, and I'll sing us all the way to the final. Pop star Chesney Hawkes tells The Sun. He reveals England adopted him as their World Cup mascot after they walloped Wales following his half-time show. I'd say that's a very clever PR for Chesney Hawkes right there. The Daily Telegraph is the harbinger of doom, sadly, today, with news that Britain is facing strikes every day until Christmas, and we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. And to make matters worse, border police officers and passport office staff could also join in the chaos after members voted in favour of strikes. There's only one story on the front page of the Daily Mail, which leads with the Palace race storm, which, of course, we led the hour on. That saw Queen Elizabeth II's former lady-in-waiting forced to quit after she continually pressed charity boss Ngozi Fulani, where she came from. The paper says that Palace officials are reportedly worried the race for Furore will overshadow the Prince and Princess of Wales landmark tour of America, which kicked off today. Lots of feedback from you on this, actually, saying they feel incredibly sorry for Lady Hussey. And Richard Kay there on the front page, inside story of how 60 years of loyal service was ended in 5 hours. Certainly not something Queen Elizabeth II would have been happy with. And the Star leads with what it calls, this is a great front page actually, a heartfelt plea to telly bigwigs from the whole nation to move the next England match on Sunday to the BBC from ITV to guarantee victory. Looking at the figures, Three Lions have a 75% win ratio when shown on the Beeb compared to just 17% on ITV. But come on, we don't need to give the BBC any more ratings, please. Back with us, columnist for that very newspaper, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Now, as we just saw on the Daily Telegraph, more than 10,000 ambulance workers have voted to strike in England and Wales in a devastating blow to an NHS already at breaking point. The GMB union announced paramedics, emergency care assistants, call handlers and other staff are set to walk out in 9 trusts across the country after they rejected the government's offer of a 4% rise. Announcing the crippling industrial action, GMB said no one in the health service takes strike action lightly. Today shows just how desperate they are. But it's the NHS that finds itself in a desperate and perilous position with this strike and the walkout of 100,000 nurses, both set to happen before Christmas. One of the health service's busiest periods. We all know that, don't we? So Health Secretary Steve Barclay responded tonight saying, I deeply regret some ambulance staff will be taking industrial action. This is in nobody's best interest as winter approaches. Economic circumstances mean union demands are not affordable. Each additional 1% rise, and this is the key line, for non-medical staff would cost around £700 million a year. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also reiterated that nurses' demands for a 19% pay rise are unreasonable at PM News today.
I have nothing but admiration and gratitude to our nurses for all the work they do. But Mr. Speaker, it is simply unreasonable and unaffordable to have a 19% pay rise. Now, if that's what the honourable gentleman thinks is, I'm sure the Labour Party can explain to us how they would pay for that and the impact it would have on inflation.
So, Dawn Neeson, look, I know you've always been very much someone who believes in the unions, believes in the right to strike.
The right to strike,
but
absolutely.
This is now, Dawn, nurses, ambulance workers, firefighters. They are trying to cripple the NHS over the Christmas period. They are asking for a 19% pay rise, which is completely unrealistic. Surely at this point, Dawn, you say, stop, enough, enough. Think of the British people.
The thing is, look, this is never ending because we can't afford it. The country cannot afford it, even if we wanted to.
And it would lead us into an inflation spiral.
Absolutely. The problem is with this situation is we have to finally accept and talk more about the fact that the NHS in a whole is not fit for purpose. But even having this debate, Dan, leads you down the road of, oh, you want to privatise it. No one's talking about that, but we have to accept that it needs reorganising. Nurses are very poorly paid, whereas we keep saying there are managers that are on £200,000 a year. The red tape is ridiculous. The amount of management is ridiculous. All of it needs sorting out. Germany and Australia both have perfectly functioning care systems where you can actually get an appointment with your doctor the day after. Because you take a very tiny amount of a private healthcare scheme. People that can't afford it don't have to pay for it.
Exactly.
They get free.
But Dawn,
It
no
needs
politicians want to have
reorganising.
this conversation. No politicians are brave enough to have this conversation.
But they should be. I mean, it's ludicrous. We can't carry on like this. These people are going to...
In Ireland, not everything is free at the point of view. I mean, actually, James, I just despair now. I despair because there's a political motivation behind this, but actually, lives are going to be lost now.
And
that is selfish.
I won't hear it being said that people that work for the NHS are selfish, because the reason
Well, they want a 19% pay rise.
The reason the NHS is still functioning is because of the kindness and hard work of these people. And by the way,
do you believe that nurses should receive a 19% pay rise?
They've had a real term pay cut
We
over the
all
last
have.
decade.
We all have.
That nurses, people who have highly stressful jobs, saving lives, also high-risk jobs, because if anything goes wrong, it's them on the line. They are leaving the industry in masses. We've got these huge shortages. They are striking.
And what about firefighters and ambulance workers? Do they all deserve a 19%?
Both the same.
Okay, but you understand the practice
They need to negotiate. But
no
the fact
political
is,
party backs a 19% rise, not one.
We've had a decade of cuts, and they're not negotiating at the moment with
They are.
unions. And,
They are, but actually, do you not
paramedics,
understand how
nurses,
unreasonable they're being?
It's duty of care. They feel that at the moment they are unable to provide duty of care, and also pay is a big part because, you know, when Theresa Coffey, I think, said if nurses don't like it, they can leave. They are. That is the problem. So therefore, the ones who are staying.
Okay, but you're not answering my question. You're not answering my question. Do you?
Yes.
No. That's not my question. Because they are being offered a pay rise.
Yeah.
They are striking because they are not receiving a 19% pay rise. Do nurses, in the current situation that we're in, looking at inflation, looking at the cost of lockdown crisis, do nurses deserve a 19% pay rise, Ashley?
I think they could negotiate, but I think we have to bear in mind...
well, yes or no?
Yeah, personally, yes, I do think they should. And I think
where does that money come from?
Doesn't pay the bills.
Adam,
but
this is the issue because you've been in the private sector.
Can I just quickly say it's worth noting that MPs have had a pay increase of 28% since 2010. I think we could all agree. Who would we prefer to be well paid?
Of course, absolutely.
But look, nurses got a 4% pay rise last year, and I think it was a 3% pay rise in 2021.
Which is more than anyone at most people.
So why was the unions happy then? You know, this all comes down to a lot of union action and muscle flexing. But as I said, no political party backs this 19% figure. I'm all for our nurses and our doctors and everyone earning more money. They do save lives. But in this case, you know, we was told in...
But it has to be reasonable.
Right, we was told in 2020...
has to be reasonable and realistic.
Yeah, we was told... The line that kept getting put out during COVID was, if it saves just one life. Well, let me just tell you now, this is going to cost many lives, this action. You know, and I'm surprised organisations like Great Ormond Street, which I loved, they cared for my brother, my late brother, operated on him. You know, they were great to my family back in the early 80s. But... how can people that look after seriously ill kids, how can they strike? How can lives be put...
how desperate they have to be to make that decision, and that's what I find really upsetting, because we are losing good people from the
I think it should be illegal for care workers and these people to strike.
Well, then they're all going to leave, and then we don't... then we're in the same mess.
Actually, I think, look, realistically, the problem is if you want to hand everyone in the public service a 19% pay rise, what would end up happening is we would have Venezuela-style inflation, and that would actually create so much more poverty than we've seen in decades in this country. So there has to be...
Dan, on average, people in the public sector are paid more than those that are not, on average.
Yeah, indeed.
We're talking about people who...
Now, look, let's have some fun. There are many songs that could be unofficial anthems of the World Cup: in gay-hating, women-suppressing Qatar, maybe Money, Money, Money by ABBA, I Want to Break Free by Queen, or Hide Your Love Away by the Beatles. But we have another contender, thanks to embattled FIFA President Gianni Infantino, who's teamed up with Qatari poster boy David Beckham and Gobby pundit Gary Neville to deliver this rare moment of self-awareness.
Oh, this is funny.
Save everybody has a price. Visit Qatar, it's really nice. Those rights abuses make me sick.
You're just another hypocrite.
So get those lights booked today.
Best not tell anyone if you're gay.
And throw that arm and away.
If you don't pay, You won't play at the sports wash.
Better keep that gob shut.
At the sports wash, yeah.
Whoever spent their time doing that, Dawn, come on.
It's brilliant.
Brilliant.
Really
You sent me this earlier today,
yeah,
Dawn.
I did, and it's credited on there as well. It's really, I can't remember his name, apologies, but it's very, very clever, very funny, and the best thing about this World Cup.
Yes, Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks, Ashley James, do stand by. But coming up, was Jacinda Ardern wrong to bristle at media questions about her gender and age during a meeting with Finland's infamous party time Prime Minister? We'll discuss as I crown tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackcast. But first, as the Walesers land on Harry and Meghan's turf, I found out from a very special US royal correspondent who America's really backing in this PR battle. Meghan's outspoken and estranged sister, Samantha Markle, is uncancelled straight after the break.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Time now for Uncancelled. And this is where the world's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. As Wills and Kate touch down stateside today, Harry and Meghan's never-ending publicity train is once again going full steam and seems intent on derailing the Prince and Princess of Wales' first visit to America in 8 years and their first tour since the death of Queen Elizabeth the Great in September. So funnily enough, today was the day when we got a very rare glimpse of Archie, baby Archie, on a Zoom call with mum Meghan. Oh, and the newest trailer for the Invictus Games was released, starring both the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. In the past few hours, the White House has confirmed that President Joe Biden plans to meet the Walesers. Tad awkward, given the ex-Fab Four's feud has even torn apart one of America's most famous political dynasties, with Robert F. Kennedy's daughter controversially awarding Harry and Meghan an award for their heroic stand against structural racism in the royal family. Sorry, I'm laughing because there's not. While John F. Kennedy's grandson has teamed up with Wills and Kate to host the Earthshot Prize in Boston. Well, I'm delighted that friend of the show, Samantha Markle, the estranged sister of the Duchess of Sussex, is our special correspondent for the tour, and she joins us live now from the US. So look, this is absolutely fascinating, Samantha, because so much is going on. Where do Americans stand at the moment on the Sussexes versus the Wales? Is it a case of simply the Democrats back Harry and Meghan and the Republicans back William and Kate?
that seems to be the case. And, so I was curious. I think that Americans view the monarchy favorably, but I didn't want to assume or just make it about my opinions. So, me, I'm back on Twitter. So I took to Twitter and I conducted a little survey, and participants, when asked how they viewed the monarchy, it turned out that 91% view it as favorably.
Wow.
Only 5% view it unfavorably, and 4% had no opinion. So I kind of feel like I was right. And when I asked my friends who are conservative, they love the monarchy. They're excited about Prince William and Princess Catherine being here, as am I. My father sends his love, by the way.
How's he doing, Samantha? How's Thomas doing?
He's doing much better. So he wanted to send his love to Great Britain and GBNews, and he's excited about the visit as well. So I think it's a great thing. And again, to address your original question, it seems to be that the left hold an unfavorable view of the monarchy, and I think a lot of that has to do with PR. I think a lot of that has to do with social media gossip that is generated by their cluster of followers. It's really not accurate.
Well, of course, today, Samantha, we're seeing the Sussex squad again jump on this whole concept of the royal family being riddled with racism because of these unfortunate comments that were made by the Queen's lady-in-waiting, former Queen's lady-in-waiting, Lady Susan Hussey. She's an 83-year-old woman. Can you believe, Samantha, that your sister has decided to pick up this award next week, which actually just seems to fuel the flames of the fact that the royal family is racist without any evidence?
Exactly. I mean, and in my personal opinion, I don't think Harry and Meghan are beacons for, a fight against racism or any viable cause right now. I mean, Harry took it upon himself to say that our freedom of speech is bonkers. So I'm going to exercise my freedom of speech and say, I think the Ripple of Hope Award really is bonkers on the grounds that everybody knows it was salient in the media. The Oprah interview was chock full of lies. And so for those two to, in my opinion, continually attack the royal family through so much and accept that award, knowing, A, that they don't represent what they are positing themselves as representing. The Oprah interview is based on lies. The racism in the monarchy is a grave misconception. I don't think there's any truth to it at all. And so, and Harry,
and the thing is, sorry, you guys.
And Harry was seen parading around in a Nazi uniform. I don't think he has a right really to.
He's not one to talk, is he? He's not one to talk. And look, I understand why this is so personal to you, Samantha, because, of course, it's your family too that Meghan and Harry have been on a 3-year campaign to denigrate, to put down, to claim as backward, to claim as racist. So they want to damage the Markles as one thing, but you think they're now using the same tactics against the Windsors that they've used on your family for a number of years.
Yes, I mean, let's face it. I think it is and has been observable that any time that there's controversy and these two aren't getting their way, seemingly, and they're, quote, busted for doing something, they don't like rules, they're not being honest, it seems to be the default to, quote, play the race card or the victim card. And I think this award is incredibly hurtful. It's not at all accurate. The Earthshot Prize Award, I think, is fantastic. I applaud Prince William and Princess Catherine of Wales for moving forward and not letting all of the tosh surrounding the Ripple Award distract them. Good things are happening. And I think it's great that they focus on the positive and let the other tosh go to the wayside. So we're excited. And so that being said, from Florida, from our family, we want to welcome Prince William and Princess Catherine to Florida, to America, to Boston. And Floridians are behind it too. I know so many people who are excited about this.
No, indeed they are. I can't wait. It's going to be great to see, and let's hope it's not overshadowed by this controversy. Let's hope it's not overshadowed by Harry and Meghan. But did you find it a bit suspicious today, Samantha, that today, all of a sudden, we saw a new picture of Archie and we saw the trailer for the Invictus Games? It's almost like they're trying to steal the thunder of William and Kate already, right?
Clearly, there seems to be this pattern of PR competitive release as decoys from other things that Prince William and Princess Catherine are doing. And as I think, in my opinion, a decoy from the fact that their favorability is plunging horribly. I think at this point, it's almost tragic comedy, in my opinion.
And look, we saw Meghan there, your sister, with her mother as well, Doria. Can I just confirm, Samantha, she still has made no contact with your father, Thomas, as he recovers from this life-threatening stroke?
That's correct. And, she's supposed to be a social worker. So, again, I mean, I've never seen a social worker behave so contrary to the principles of social work and humanitarianism. No unity, no
just go and see Thomas.
No conflict resolution.
Just go and see your dad. Exactly. Just go and see your dad. Look, Samantha Markle, thank you so much. Our special correspondent for this royal tour. Absolutely brilliant to have you today. But it's time now to reveal our Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. The superstar panel return. Dawn Neeson, who's your nominee for Greatest Brit?
Mine is going to be, excuse me, Camilla, the Queen Consort, for talking out about violence against women and girls in the amazing summit she held the other day, a summit that's been sadly overtaken by this race row, and we should be talking about the real issue here, which again is violence against women and girls.
Adam Brooks, your nominee.
This is quite a sad one for me. This is the second time I've nominated this very special little girl. Her name is Isla Wynne, who unfortunately passed away last week.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Adam.
Lost her battle with the very cruel and little-known cancer, DIPG. And I'd just like to send my love and my support to her family and her friends. And this news really upset me and touched me. So, rest in peace, Isla.
So sorry to hear that. Ashley James, your nominee.
My Greatest Britain is actually an honorary one, and it's your favourite person, Dan, Jacinda Ardern, just for her brilliant takedown of what was a ridiculously sexist comment from a journalist asking...
Do you know, I haven't actually seen this yet, but we've got it here, so we'll watch it now, OK?
Yeah, a lot of people will be wondering, are you two meeting just because, you're similar in age and, got a lot of, common stuff there, when you got into politics and stuff.
My first question is, I wonder whether or not anyone ever asked Barack Obama and John Key if they met because they were of similar age. Because two women meet, it's not simply because of their gender.
Oh no, Jacinda, you never play identity politics, do you? Never! Heaven forbid! No, of course she's not winning.
What she actually said in full was actually brilliant, though, so, yeah.
OK, I'll watch it after the show. Of course, little Isla has to be our Greatest Britain. Rest in peace. Absolutely tragic news. Dawn Neeson, your Union Jackass nominee.
Union Jackass is our Tony Blair for talking out this week, saying we're all being a little bit harsh on Qatar over their human rights.
Yes, I know.
This is the same Tony Blair that has actually earned quite a lot of money from, Qatar, for actually advising them on politics.
Adam Brooks, quickly, your nominee.
Mine is Nicola Sturgeon for her crazy self-ID.
And we discussed that at the top of the show. And Ashley James, your nominee.
Mine is the Victorian ghoul, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for his appalling comments around abortion, describing it as a cult of death, even in the context of rape and incest.
What did you describe him as?
He's a Victorian ghoul.
Oh, because he's got a different view from you.
I think she's being polite, actually. I've got worse words.
Well, look, I'm going to go with Adam Brooks. Scheming Sturgeon. If you missed my digest at the top of the show, it is on my Twitter account, @Dan Wootton. What a brilliant superstar panel tonight. Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks, Ashley James, thank you so much. Thank you for your company. Really enjoyed that. I'm back tomorrow night, though, from 9 p.m. Next up, it's Headliners. Have an amazing night. Good night.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no sense.